Hello once again, and welcome to the Greg Struss Show. I'm Greg Struss, coming to you almost live and direct here from Cable Television City in the west side of Chicago. And I am grateful that you are joining us for what will hopefully be another entertaining and informative show. And tonight is kind of a special moment here because it was 6 years ago that we started doing this program. It was in August of 2012 that we started this show. So here we are, 87 shows and 6 years later. And you know, it's been kind of interesting in the way that the show has developed. You know, it started out, we wanted to do kind of like an entertainment program. So we did a kind of an entertainment program, and then 23, 24 shows in, we started kind of talking about addiction and recovery, because that's the line of work I was in. I was a counselor, and talk about some of these points because they're things that I work on in my life on a daily basis, and I like to share that. So I think, you know, now having been more shows in, 6 years down the road, having made some changes, drastic changes, both in my life, my personal life, and in the life of the show, that here I am, coming to you once again, almost live and direct here from Cable Television City in the west side of Chicago. So 6 years, and it just has gone by like a blink of the eye. And sometimes I feel like I'm not that much further along, but you know, things were different, and I feel good about it. And I'm glad that you're tuning in tonight, because we're going to talk about the fourth step as it relates to problem solving and having serenity, that peace of mind. So as we recover, and a lot of people say, well, you know what, your show's about, you know, it's aimed at recovery and addiction, and it's really not. We talk about these, you know, I talk about these things because they're life examples. They're examples of how I can improve myself, working through a step. A step is a solution to every problem. Now, what we're hearing on the news on a daily basis. Now, okay, let me go back to this. A solution to every problem is a step, solution to every problem. But are we hearing any solutions? Part of working steps, okay, 12-step recovery, and it's not the only way. The original program of Alcoholics Anonymous, Cannabis Anonymous, all of these things came out of AA. But the original AA program was 6 steps, and then they made it 12 steps. And then for those people that go to meetings and want to, you know, meet someone new, it's that 13th step, which, you know, you really ought to stay away from. Why? Because somebody that is ill, okay, because in addiction, people are believed to be sick on a certain level. So getting into a relationship with another sick person when I am sick myself, okay, trying to overcome that addiction, isn't really going to merit anything other than more drama and chaos. And I've learned this through personal experience and watching people. All right, I need to go to, when I go to meetings, if meetings are the way that I want to start changing and overcoming my addiction, I need to focus on the message of the meeting, not, you know, the eye candy that might be sitting in there. More often than not, there's a hustle going on some level. And I just think good recovery, you keep it in recovery. Your stuff you do outside of recovery, do outside of recovery. Now, it's not that cut and dry, because sometimes we meet people that we're attracted to and that perhaps are working on the same issues or the same things that we are. So helping one another. But more often than not, with the opposite sex, it becomes sexual, and it derails what I'm really there for, okay? So it's kind of like going to work on a daily basis and getting involved in situations that are not work-related. So if I'm serious about my recovery, I need to keep it on the recovery level, that nothing is going to get in the way of me getting well again, all right? So being around those people can be supportive. However, if I'm starting to get personal with people who lack boundaries and haven't worked on their issues, more often than not, it's going to work against me. So as we talk about like the fourth step, it's an inventory step. How can we discuss this as it relates to the person that is not working on, that doesn't have an addiction issue. I think it's good to take an inventory in our life. I got to go through my garage because I've had stuff in the garage for years that I haven't looked at. So what do? I go through an inventory and see what I need to keep and see what I need to give to Goodwill or throw out or what have you, because you know what, I gotta work on it. And that's bringing anxiety in my life, so I'm speaking about that as well. So in recovery, we start to come up with solutions, okay, to every problem through various steps, okay? And then, how do we apply that to what's going on in the news right now? There's personal accountability and personal responsibility. So if I'm doing an inventory, it's kind of making a list of the people that I've harmed or that have harmed me and working through the resentment. Whether and further along, we will make amends. But I think this fourth step is good anytime because of what's going on in politics, what's going on in the world, taking that inventory so we can come up with a solution, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But in the meantime, I'm Greg. This is The Greg Struss Show, celebrating 6 years on community television here in the west side of Chicago. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll be back in just a moment. Yes! We got to get over here before the end of the applause. Thank you so much. And welcome to The Greg Show, ushering in a new television era here from the west side of Chicago.
Yeah.
I've been down this road several times before. The doubt, whether or not I will arrive to a certain destination in my time, in my life, the bumps,
Yes, sir.
all that stuff. But enough about driving on the Dan Ryan Expressway. Thank you. Welcome back to The Greg Struss Show. I'm Greg Struss. And you can contact us here at gstrussman@gmail.com. If you have, if you're having a problem in your life with a parent or somebody who has an issue with addiction, remember that, it's something that my grandma told me years ago when I was probably about 15, 16 years old, and I was angry. I was always angry at my father. My mother passed away when I was young, and my father drank a lot. And, as a kid, you look at your parents and you think they need to act a certain way and be a certain way. And my grandma Helen, who was just a very dear person in my life, especially after, even before my mother passed away at age 7, I always looked forward to going to my grandma's. And every time I left, she always gave me a kiss, gave me some money. And I always cried for a week after because I just missed her so much. I can't explain that. I never had that feeling for somebody like that. And my grandma always made me feel safe. And she was never critical of me. And she always told me I was her favorite. I don't know if she told my sisters they were her favorite, but she made me feel special, and again made me feel safe. And Grandma Helen told me more than once, as I was fighting with my father in my teenage years, Gregory, your father is a very sick man, and you cannot reason with a drunk. And I'm like, what do you mean you can't reason with a drunk? What's a drunk? He's my father. He's supposed to be responsible. He's supposed to have a job. He's supposed to be doing this. Gregory, your father is a sick man, and you are not going to reach him. And it was just as cutting as that. But at 15 years old, I just couldn't wrap myself over the concept that here's a grown man who's fathered 4 children, and doesn't have his act together. How many people have we met that way, by the way, as we grow older and see many of the people in our lives that have kids that they're not paying attention to? So what was the solution in that? I didn't learn that solution until I overcame my own drinking problem. In that, you know what, I don't buy that, yes, there is the disease of alcoholism, but I think that there's a lot of enabling from families, and that enabling allows it to continue. And then a culture sets in, the blame game goes, well, you're the black sheep or this person, and everybody acts out. So how does that fourth step apply to overcoming all of this? All right, 4 steps out of 12, we're not even halfway, right? But it's a very important step that many people don't work. Why? Because I got to feel again. I got to feel without the drug. I got to feel without the sex. I got to feel without the gambling and that excitement of holding the dice. I got to come together as one with Greg and the Lord or whoever it is that I believe in, and have a sit down and make that list of the people that have irritated me or that judged me or wherever those resentments came. And it takes time, and more so it takes effort. And I got to feel again. And sometimes when those of us who anesthetized our feelings, all right, we anesthetized it through either alcohol, drugs, sex, food, what have you, gambling, shopping, all of a sudden we don't have that vice anymore, and here we are like, oh my gosh, I really have to feel this. So I work through that list, and I break it down into, wow, now I got to read this. And is there more? Because in doing this and taking that inventory, that emotional inventory, it tells me where I might have been too hard on myself. Maybe I wasn't right about Uncle John. Maybe I wasn't right about my father. And realizing that, you know what, I was a young boy and I have to cut myself some slack, that I felt that way. All right, and I think that works into forgiveness. All right, that, you know, wow, it's big. And then we move into sharing it with somebody we trust who isn't going to be judgmental. But it's coming up with the solution. And I think solutions are important, and we're not kids aren't taught solutions in school. Oh yeah, this math problem, 2 plus 2, what's the solution? 4. We're talking problems, we're talking life or death. We're talking things that are going on in America right now and in history that just have never happened in the past. And I was having a conversation the other night with somebody who started, the name calling and what have you based on a vote, okay? And I sat down and I said, you know what the beautiful thing about our country is, about living in the United States? And this includes everybody that lives in the United States. People that are here illegally, that own homes and that work and that contribute to the economy, and they pay taxes, but they're not recognized because they make less money and they're working jobs that supposedly people are too good to work. I think it's all BS. People that are here that participate in the American way of life are Mexican American, Polish American, Guatemalan American, Muslim American, Arabic American, everybody, okay? Everybody participates in the American dream and the American way of life. Therefore, I believe they're American. They're not citizens, but they, ought to be recognized as something more than somebody that's here illegal. I'm so fed up with it. I'm fed up with that messaging. What's the solution to that? I think the solution is to say what I said the other night. You know what's beautiful about this country? And what's beautiful about our life? And I'm feeling this positive energy right now, sharing this. I wish I felt this every moment of my life, is that it's okay. We have freedom of choice. Just because I voted a certain way last time doesn't mean that I'm beholden to that way. I have the capability of learning. All right? Maybe I know a little more than I did the last time I voted. And maybe the messaging from the last time I voted wasn't right. And maybe as I've grown as a person and matured, that I see things differently. So the way I voted 10 years ago may not fit with what I believe today. And that's okay. It doesn't mean I'm selling out. It means that I'm being true to myself and true to being an American, that I have a choice and that I participate in the democratic process. Now get this. Is there a solution? Okay, is there a solution if I don't take action? Well, let's talk about the election. Do I have the right to be angry at an outcome that I didn't participate in? I was registered to vote and I didn't vote. Therefore, I am angry at the outcome. All right, but I didn't take action. So what's the solution? To be angry? Or do I move into acceptance and saying, you know what? Next time, I am going to be sure to wake up. Well, first of all, I'm going to register. I'm going to talk to my friends. We're going to discuss things, and I'm going to go out and vote. I'm going to take action. So part of that fourth step, I think, is an action step, okay? Because we're taking inventory on the things that are bothering me. I'm angry at, some people might say, I'm angry at politics. I don't like the mayor. But I didn't vote, so therefore I didn't have a voice. My voice sat on the side. So who do I really have to be angry at? I really have to be angry at myself because I didn't take, action. It's the same thing that when a parent loses a child in a police shooting, you can't say that. I just don't think that one can say that every single police shooting involving a child is, an execution from the police officer. It just, statistically, I don't think that's possible. And really what it begins with is at home and having respect for law and order. But more so, if a child doesn't respect their parent and the parent doesn't respect the child, how are they going to respect or learn to respect any other kind of authority figure, such as a teacher or a principal or an employer? Without respect and without self-accountability and self-responsibility, it's all for naught. So where's the solution in that? I really think that working towards a solution involves communication. It involves me sitting down. Now, part of communication is writing. I write that step out, and I go back and I review it later because I might want to add or take something out of it. And some of you may think that this is really bizarre, but it works. Journaling, I think, is really something that isn't talked about often. I get teased because wherever I'm at, I'm usually writing something, and people always think that I'm writing about them. And I always tell them, when they get in my face, like, what are you writing about? I said, I'm writing. It's something personal. And, well, you're always writing. I said, that's right. I said, it's how I maintain my peace of mind, because, if you use serenity, then you sound like, you're one of those 12-steppers. And there's nothing wrong with that. I've kind of moved on from that. And what's nice about it is that, again, that's a choice. I can choose to stay or choose to continue in meetings, or I can choose to do something else. And what's really funny, too, is that when you leave AA sometimes, or you leave a group like that, it's like, oh, where have you been? Are you drinking again? No, I'm not. It's really none of your business. Thanks for checking, by the way. I'm just doing other things that add value and meaning to my life. Now, I'm not, I'm kind of revealing some personal things in my life, but it's from, it's to hopefully demonstrate that that I have a choice and that you have a choice too, and that there's not just one way. I've heard people talk about, oh, well, AA is the only way. No, it's not. Going to church is a way. It's called faith-based healing. Going to the gym may be a way. Why? Because I meet other healthy people that are going to hopefully introduce some new healthy ways in which I can live, right? Because now I'm on a quest for what? To get well and better my life, right? Maybe I want to get a little more physically fit. I've lost 50 pounds, by the way, and I'm feeling great. This coat is huge. Next, I'd like to go to the gym. Why? Because I want to meet healthy people. Doesn't necessarily mean that everybody that hangs out in the gym doesn't have a substance abuse problem or doesn't have other issues in their life, but they're working on what? Bettering themselves on a certain level, their health and wellness. And I think a lot of positivity comes out of that. Instead of the braggadocious. we were talking before the show tonight, Lee and I, and how people will say, well, you know, I got this camera and I got that camera. I've never been that way. You know, if I had a car and somebody wanted to go and buy a better car than me, hey, great, I'm really happy for you. But I'm quite happy with what I drive for the moment, okay, because that's where I'm at. Some people want to go out and spend $1,200 on a new cell phone. Personally, I'm happy with my $80 phone, so everything is good with that. So in ending with that fourth step and coming up with a solution, it's the accountability, it's the personal accountability and personal responsibility, that I'm not blaming another, okay, so like another person, and that I'm being honest, open, and willing and being teachable in a sense, okay? I'm getting down to the causes and conditions of why I did certain things, okay? And when we come back, we're gonna talk about what's going on in the news and maybe, you know, why people are not working on a solution. Is it commercially driven? We'll find out next as the Greg Struss Show continues. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
I'm talking to you. I'm telling you. There it is.
Recording?
I've been rolling all night, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Greg Struss Show, and I am telling you. I don't know, something's going on with me. That's the elixir. It's in the cough syrup that I've been taking today. And unfortunately, we've been having a conversation in between this break.
And we are back on the Greg Struss Show. Thanks for joining us. Before the break, we were talking about the fourth step, taking an inventory and coming up with that solution as we work through the other steps. I think an inventory is great. It's great for business. Why? Because you find out what's missing. All right? How much money did we lose on our goods? Are people stealing? Are we giving stuff away? So doing that inventory is necessary if I want to stay in business, if I want to be financially solvent. So inventory, you know, in our daily lives is very important because it keeps us balanced and letting us know what, you know, what there is out there for us and how we're going to react. So now that I've put it on paper and I've committed to, you know, putting it out there, I can read and say, oh my gosh, maybe this contributed to why I felt depressed or angry or full of anxiety. And maybe that pushed me to have that drinking problem. Or I felt horrible about high school, or I felt horrible about being made fun of because I was fat, or whatever those reasons are for people. And so working through those things are very important in order to get well. You know, one of the things I talked about was the police shootings. And every day, hearing about how the first thing out of a mother's mouth is the Chicago police killed my son. And I feel so badly for that mother who lost her son. And I feel badly for the son who lost his life. And I feel horrible for the police officer who took that person's life in the line of their duty. What I don't care for is the blame game, because deep down, we don't know what the threat was, We don't know where that officer was in that decision. And more so, I think it's a defensive move in taking the responsibility off of the parent. And it's not to say that the parent was at fault, but certain things are learned at home. I think respect is learned. And if somebody doesn't respect their parent, and the parent's not respecting the child, or the parent isn't reaching the child, there's a problem that needs to be addressed by the parent. Otherwise, it ends up in a situation where, you know, maybe through some help, that it could have been avoided. More often than not, I think false pride stands in the way of solutions. Why? Because when I have to admit that Johnny, my son, has a problem with authority or isn't listening, it's a red flag that maybe down the line this is going to be an issue that's going to affect his life and his decisions. And is he making decisions based on how I acted as a parent, how I treated him, you know, not having limitations? I'm sorry, if a kid doesn't know by age of 7 limitations, I think it's over. I really do, I think it's over. But a lot of people have guilt through religion or through the way they were raised. And now it's like, well, I didn't have that. But you know what? It was okay that I didn't have that. I turned out okay that I didn't get everything I wanted as a kid. Sometimes giving too much, you know, is too much. Maybe, or giving too much is not enough. Giving too much of the material and not enough of the discipline, or not enough of the respect. And it begins at home. The solution is to get it handled when the problem starts. I really believe that's the end of the school shootings. It's the end of a lot of things. When people become personally accountable and responsible, and that requires taking action. So the mother that lost the son, who's blaming the police officer for taking the son's life, who wasn't there, I think is really speaking of, I wish I would have done a better job of being a parent. And sometimes, you know what? People are young when they have kids, and they're still learning. We're human. But to blame somebody else all the time is just not the way to go. And I think that's what's happening. And, you know, it's kind of like what Dennis Prager says. He says that he likes, and I like Dennis Prager. You know, I talk a lot about the conservative people on here because I like talk radio. I like listening to all voices, you know. And Dennis Prager says that he prefers clarity to agreement, being clear. I don't have to agree with you. What are the facts? I don't have to agree with you on the facts. The facts speak for themselves. I may not like the facts, but it gives me clarity, right? So working a 4th step gives me what? Clarity. And a certain amount of what? Seeing the facts that contributed to my addiction. And hopefully will serve as the solution to my getting well. So anyway, you can reach us here at The Greg Struss Show at gstrussman@gmail.com. We are also on YouTube with The Greg Struss Show as your search words. We have a lot of different episodes on there. And I really want to thank you for taking the time out to tune in to our 6th anniversary here on The Greg Struss Show. And we are here every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock on Channel 19, Xfinity Comcast in the western suburbs of Chicago, and again on YouTube.com. Greg Struss, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next time. Goodbye, everybody.